coverage. We're here to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Let's get it on. What's up, y'all? It's a pleasure to have you here this evening. I'm joined by the great Big Game James. Dude, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. I'll be loving y'all fire openings. See, I told Joe he gonna get me right because y'all be coming in like triumphant. I'll be like, "Hello, this is Big Gay James." So yeah, man, I love it. What's up, man? I appreciate you, Joe, having me on.
Now, of course, man. So if y'all haven't dialed into Joe Castro and James's Best of Enemies podcast, you guys definitely gotta dial in. He's being humble right now. His intro with the Dave Chappelle song in the background is fantastic. It's solid gold, man. So I appreciate it.
That's kind of second to none, for real.
Nah, for us, awesome, man, for real. So yeah, catching up with James right now. James is good people. Basically, as I mentioned before, he has his own channel, Big Game James podcast. He's also on the Best of Enemies podcast. And guys, today what we're going to do is we're just going to catch up and talk about the Dallas Cowboys. As a Washington Commanders content creator, I just want to learn about the Cowboys, kind of catch up on it, and we're going to have some knowledgeable talk, man. So it'll be all good. I'm starting to see some of these people come in already. Some of these Cowboys coming in. Let's go Cowboys. What's up, fam? We're starting to see that come into the chat right now. I love it, man. So they're already representing good stuff, man. So that's cool. So James, before we get into it, man, like, you're new to my channel, so kind of coach us all up. How did you get into content creation? How did you get into the Dallas Cowboys? How did it all start?
Well, I mean, pretty much. I always been a sports fanatic. I'm Cowboys all my life, born and raised. Well, not born and raised in Texas, but that's where I've been half my life, half here in Ohio. But that's where a lot of my father's side of my family is all Texas. So we Cowboys. My father, he's gone now, but he was a diehard Cowboy. So he kind of just grew me into it. So we're just a sports oriented family. That's all we kind of did, and so that's what I kind of grew up in, always being about sports oriented. And I love football. I love just sports, basketball, everything. So, like I said, I coached for a while, coached youth football for about 15 years. Loved that. Really loved keeping my ear to the game, and coached my sons in it. Just like really coaching talent, just really kind of grew from there. And then I just had a passion to want to get behind the mic and really kind of talk about it. So we had a media school out here in Ohio. I decided to attend. I jumped into it.
What's up, Carlos?
And what's up, everybody? And I just decided my initial thing, like we were talking, was I wanted to do high school athletes, open the door, give them a platform, get kids out there, maybe scholarship opportunities, whether it's football, basketball, track, anything. Just give them a platform and give them an opportunity, because I know when I played, I wish I could have had it. So I just like to, give back. So that's what we were doing. I was doing that while I was in media school. We were having kids coming in the studio. It was pretty good. But, then my guy who was in school with me, he was a producer, and he was a diehard like me. And he was like, "Hey, bro, let's just start a Cowboy show. Let's see what we can do with it." So I was like, I love the Cowboys. I see all these guys talking about it. Why not? You know what I'm saying? So I said, I said, let's do it. So we started in 2017, and I mean, it kind of did blow up. We did a lot of things out there in these YouTube streets, and just in these streets in general. I'm very proud of. We set a lot of trends out there in these streets, opened a lot of doors, and created a lot of things. And it kind of meshed the YouTube with the Cowboys community out there, so it could be more one, and so the fans could come more and feel like they could touch these guys, and that's what I wanted to do. And I feel
100%.
like we were able to do that. So they're always not far away, and you feel like you can't touch them. And I feel like that's what we did over there, and that was a good thing. So right now we're back doing the high school, which that's my passion. And we've been doing a slew of interviews, great young men out there. We're about to have my first young lady this week. She's a basketball athlete. So, like I said, we want to continue to open doors for these young athletes and continue to give them a voice. And now that I have a established platform, I really want to go hard and open that door for them. But I'm always Cowboys for life.
I love that, man. Good stuff, man. Really good stuff. So two things I love that take away from that whole conversation right there. Having a content that a channel that you love, a channel that you can basically get fan input. Because I think like for years and years before all this content started to develop, it really was 4 or 5 talking heads for each team, kind of just like getting the message across without getting true fan input. So I love having the fan access there. Quick question, man. So you said you coach. Do you do offense or defense? What position do you have?
Man, I'm defense all day,
I love
dog. You
defense
know what
all
I'm
day,
saying?
man. Hell yeah.
I always did defense. I ain't never messed with offense. Now, when I did, I honestly, when I won, my year, I went to the championship twice. I did lose, but
Yeah.
I was actually coaching offense and defense.
Nice.
I was one of those guys that I didn't trust people. Maybe that was just the guy in me. I felt like if we're gonna mess up, I'm gonna have me do it. So I end up, I was going against a lot
That's
of
how I am
guys that
too.
had like 10 coaches on the sideline. It was just me, and I was banging with them. You feel me? But I'm a defensive guy. I love stopping people. That was when I played basketball. When I played football. I love shutting people down. That's what I like doing. And that's the thing. Defense carries. You feel me? Defense wins.
100%.
And you're always going to have a good offense, but eventually that offense may have a bad game, bad weather, something may happen. But that defense can always keep you in that game. You can make one big play on that offense. So that's why you got to have that good, tough defense. So I'm all defense all day, big dog.
100%, bro. I appreciate that. I agree with that. What's up to Joe Castro? That's Philly the podcast right there. That's James's co-host on the Best
My
of
dog.
Enemies podcast. Yeah, good people right there. Very good people right there. We're gonna play trivia in a second. I had a couple of Jerry Jones questions to ask you, but before we get there, just curious, what's your favorite era of like Cowboys football? Like what generation, what decade, what team was your favorite team of all time?
Man, that's tough because see, I'm older. See, a lot of these Cowboy fans out here, they only really know them 90s. See, I was in them 70s, you feel me? So I saw the doomsday defense, you feel me? I went through the 80s with the Danny Whites. I saw the Troy Aikmans, I saw them eras. That's tough. I'm honestly say I will say the 90s. It's close because I saw those 70s teams and I really loved them, but I was young. I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, so I was just a kid, just loving the game. When I was a little bit older, it was more exciting for me because I was like 19, 20, 21 years old, and that was just. It was like I had waited for so long for the Cowboys to finally come back. And so to finally be able to be older and see it, I think that was that be able to appreciate that and be able to brag in people's faces and love that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say that. Yeah, I will definitely say that 90s era kind of did something to me because that's Cowboys kind of had that, real flair. We had it in the 70s, but we had that real flair when Jerry came in early like that.
I agree, man, 100%. So, Carlos, thank you for jumping in the chat. So, I was going to ask James later on, but actually, we'll ask him right now. So, quick question, James. I'll answer this too after you answer. Who's a person that people are sleeping on for the Dallas Cowboys? Who's a player that people don't really know under the radar? Who do you got?
Ooh, sleeping on the Cowboys right now, under the radar.
I can go first. You want to go ahead?
No,
go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say, but my guy Law Nation mentioned it, and I'm gonna say it as well. But I would definitely say Malik Hooker is not being talked about enough. I mentioned him as one of my signings, one of my big signings before they signed him. That's one of the guys I was trumpeting to bring back because I wanted him back. I felt like he was going to be a great asset. The second half of the season, you could see how good he played. I think it was almost like a career year for him in less games. I mean, more games than he played with Indianapolis. So it was almost like his second best year and less time because he didn't play as many snaps as he did in Indianapolis. So you could really see him starting to come on. He has the size that you want. He's a playmaker, and you just saw him really getting familiar with the team. And for the Cowboys to bring him in on a really good deal for a 2-year deal, and he's still young, I think he's underrated. I think he's going to be even better in this second year in this defense. And paired with him and Curse, this is the first time I can actually feel good about the safety combo. So Malik Hooker right now is the guy I'm going to say is really underrated. It's going to really show a lot of people something this year.
I'm not gonna lie, I loved Hooker coming out of Ohio State, man. I thought he was going to be an awesome free safety anyway. So you guys are lucky. Getting him at the end of his career, or the midpoint of his career, where he has something to prove at a pretty cheap discount, is way to go. It's good. It's a good call right there. Carlos, I think you're a Commanders fan right here, so you might not find this as a sleeper, but for the Cowboys Nation, I'm going to represent Cam Curl, man, our strong safety. I don't know, have you guys ever heard of him yet, James, or not?
No, I haven't heard of him at all. I heard the name. I was looking at him, but I ain't heard him. I ain't going front.
Yeah, Cam Curl, man, he's legit. So basically, I believe he was a 6th-round draft pick. We got him the same year that we drafted Chase Young, and basically, he for those that I'm sure you'd follow it nationally. We drafted we signed Landon Collins, so a huge free agent contract. He's supposed to be our strong safety, he's supposed to dominate, but basically Cam Curl just pushed Landon Collins to the bench at one point. He actually was a solid player. He plays Buffalo nickel, which we key in DC, which is like almost like a big nickel position where you kind of play in the run right there as well. And he's awesome, man. So Cam Curl is a great player. I think he's going to be next up. Him and Cole Holcomb are the next two that are going to get a pretty large contract moving forward. So Cam Curl's legit. And also Cole Turner. It's like a deep sleeper. We actually drafted him in the late round, I think the 5th or 6th round this year, maybe 6th round. He was the Nevada quarterback. I forget his name now. The Carson Strong's tight end. He basically is like 6'6", huge catch radius. He might not blow up per se, but we're going to use him in the red zone this year. So definitely people watching him there.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna definitely keep my eye on that because I feel like you're a real good expert, especially at that safety position. I'm gonna definitely check that out because that's a position that I think that you guys needed to address this year, and we'll see how that goes.
No doubt, man. All right, man. So let's jump into this trivia, man. Let's see what you know about all of this, right? So it ain't too bad, though. It ain't too bad. I think it'd be all right. I threw you a couple bones. I think it's kind of fun for the listeners as well. All right, so it's a Jerry Jones based trivia, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. Ain't too bad, right?
Ooh, okay.
All right. First question, right?
Yeah.
Jerry Jones. How did he accumulate all his wealth? How did he get so rich? Do you know?
Oil.
Yeah, he got oil. Basically, he's an oil and a prospect land person. He basically like prospected land out in the West. He started off first. He had a $1 million loan to make Shakey's pizzas around the Texas area, but that flopped. And then basically he started getting into oil and he blew up that one. Sounds pretty easy. All right, so it's a little bit harder for this one, right?
All
right. Jerry Jones. He was the co-captain of the 1964 Arkansas football team. What position did Jerry Jones play?
Oh, did he play like on the line? Was he like a guard or something like that?
Hell yeah, man. Good catch. You got to do his offensive lineman. Hell yeah, man. So he basically he was a running back in high school and he became an offensive lineman. Good call, man. You're definitely a diehard fan. I like this. All right. This one should be pretty easy, right? Next up.
All right.
When Jerry Jones bought the team in 1989, who was the first coach that he hired?
Jimmy Johnson.
Okay, that's a pretty easy one right there. Everyone's all knocking these out. People know what's up in the chat. I like it. There's some educated fans. I like this. Center. He played the line. All right, cool. All right, last but not least. Okay, what is Jerry Jones's net worth?
Oh, that's tough right there. I think he's worth. Is he like
more than that? Life's crazy. A lot more than that. But go ahead. What do you got?
500 million?
No, a lot more than that.
$1 billion?
Start talking bees, bro.
Okay, I'm gonna say 5 billion.
All right, he's worth $8 billion. Is that much he's worth? I think the Cowboys alone are $5.1 billion.
Yeah, I know the Cowboys is some bread. 8 points. See, that's what I'm saying. He ain't losing, dog. That's why he ain't tripping. I know he's mad, but he ain't
he's
tripping.
Smart too.
He getting 8 billion, so he ain't tripping.
Yeah, he's smart, man. He knows what's up too. He basically has whole family in the whole front office and doing all that, so we're good over there. All right, bro. So let's start talking football, man. So, this is the Commanders podcast. I want you to coach me up. I want to hear what you guys think. So let's go through the draft, man. So you don't have to go through every single pick, but maybe talk about the whole draft philosophy for the Cowboys. What players stood out to you? Who's going to make an immediate impact? So if you want to start off with round one, you're more than welcome to do that. But I'll leave it open-ended on purpose. How do you feel about the Cowboys draft?
I mean, the Cowboys draft well. I mean, Will McClay, that's one of the reasons why the Cowboys, honestly, to my opinion, they stay afloat. Will McClay is a monster as far as finding talent, especially in the draft. This is the lifeline of the Cowboys. They don't do anything in free agency at all. They get, low-end players. They get low-end deals. They wait to the third wave of free agency. That's the Cowboys way. That's what Stephen Jones has trained us to do. It's not Jerry Jones, it's Stephen Jones, and that's how he operates. So the lifeline is the draft. They have to draft well. If they don't draft well, then it's going to be a bad season for the Cowboys. So luckily, they have drafted well, especially in Mike McCarthy's era. He has two decent drafts. And if we look at this draft this past time, I think a lot of people were say, oh, Dallas reached with the Tyler Smith from Tulsa. But I think when we were looking at how the draft was shaping, we had talked about how the Eagles had drafted ahead. They got Jordan Davis. They were stacking up that defensive line. Dallas's line was offensive line was in flux. They lost La'el Collins. You had Terrence Steele, who was undrafted, taking over the right tackle position.
And he did pretty well, right? He played pretty well.
He played very well. You know what I'm saying? He basically pushed Collins out. I mean,
That's
that's
what
why
I
they
heard.
felt
That's what
that.
I was catching. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's why they felt like they could get rid of Collins because the way it's still played, and he's cheaper. Let's keep it real. That's how Stephen Jones liked to operate. Then Connor Williams, who was their original draft pick out of Texas, he played okay. I mean, he was admirable. He wasn't a garbage player, but we all knew he just wasn't the guy at the left guard position. Obviously, he left, so there was that gap right there. So you didn't have that great offensive line, and you have Tyron Smith, who's getting another year older, and he still has issues, and Tyler Biadasz had regressed a little bit. So it wasn't this offensive line that we had remembered. So they had to do something. So
was that their biggest need going into the draft, the offensive line, you think? Or what do you
I
in your
definitely
opinion?
I definitely feel like it was the biggest need because it was so much influx, and the way it started off so well and then it kind of just blew up toward the end of the season, and you had so many moving parts. You had to really address that to get that established again, because you still have a decent running game in Ezekiel Elliott, and you have a Tony Pollard back there. You got Dak Prescott. If you give him some time, he can make some plays. So you had to be able to address that offensive line, and it was going to be addressed early because there was a lot of what ifs if that draft pick came down to it. Was you going to go defensive line? Was you go linebacker? There was a lot of different ways Dallas could have went with it, but offensive line was one of the top three in my opinion. When I was even speaking on it as well, offensive line was my top three to be addressed in that first round.
It makes sense. And obviously, I think you nailed it too. Basically, I think this year's draft was pretty deep with offensive line in general. So I think you could get somebody in the first or second round, but it's getting someone to basically have that foundation. And honestly, the Cowboys, that's their foundation. They've been built on strong offensive lines. And as you mentioned, that strong running game in Dak Prescott is huge. Were you happy with the draft? Did you feel like Dallas got some good value? Did they build their team up, or what do you think?
I think I gave Dallas a B. I liked, like I said, I think Tyler Smith is going to be good. I wasn't hating on that pick. I just felt like, we got to see he's in a smaller school, Tulsa, competition wise. But when I watched the player, big, 6'4", 6'5", 330 pounds, he's a big dude. He's athletic. And just needs good teaching. And, I think Duke Mayweather is teaching him. He's actually been on our show. Great teacher. He's actually what was one of the reasons I feel a lot of people feel that reason why Terrence Steele got so much better is because he worked his butt off with Mayweather. So you see Tyler Smith going on those same lines, and he's a Texas boy. He's from Texas. He's from Dallas. So I feel like that's a little bit bigger when you're coming from that. The guys take more pride in that. And I feel like he wants to prove a lot of people that this wasn't a mistake pick. And I think he has the ability to do it. So if I think he gets really good coach, I worry about offensive line coach and Joe Philbin. I don't really believe in him, but hopefully he can get some real good coaching and come in, because I feel like he's eventually going to be our starting left tackle.
That's what I keep hearing. I've been reading up on the Cowboys too. He's the eventual long-term replacement for Tyron Smith. Cool.
You can see it. Like they'll probably start him at guard and then see how it goes, because I still feel like we got a Connor McGovern back there who Joe Philbin doesn't seem to like. But I talked to Connor McGovern's dad, back and forth, and I've liked Connor McGovern since he came out of school, and I said give him a chance. Not trying to go off the subject, but if we're looking at that position, if you got the Tyler Smith right there, and I talked to a few people, Kyle Yuma is one of the beat writers out there with the Cowboys. I said if something happened with somebody Tyron Smith going down, who would be the swing tackle? He said Tyler Smith. That's what I said. And I said Connor McGovern was sliding at your left guard. He never played left guard ever in his life. I told his father he never played left guard in his life.
McGovern was an early pick, though, wasn't it? I remember,
it was a third round.
I was like, from a Kansas State or Iowa State, or where did he come from?
He came from Penn State.
Penn State,
third round pick, came right guard, but he was one of the top centers coming out of high school.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I remember. I was watching him too in the draft.
Exactly. So and then he played right guard. So he had never played left guard. So people were dogging him. He had a 5 game. He didn't even play terrible. His first game started against Chris Jones. Then he came against another defensive line in the New Orleans Saints. So you're not going against bums. You understand what I'm saying? So this what I mean is, where it could happen if they slid him at left guard, McGovern, you could possibly see Tyler Smith playing if Tyron Smith goes down. Just saying, keep your eyes on that.
How old is Tyron Smith now?
I think he's like 32.
Okay.
Maybe 33. But I've been saying I love Tyron Smith.
Dude, honestly, yeah.
He's a monster, but
for real, being a Commanders fan, being a Washington fan, it was always Trent Williams and Tyron Smith just holding down the left tackle NFC East. Man, I miss Trent Williams so much. And
three or 4 years, those were the guys you talked about every single year. You know 100%. What I mean? But just like with Trent Williams, You're getting older. He's going to get hurt. I mean, we understand he's already got back issues again. So you already got to assume he's missing 3 or 4 games. So that's why you already got to be looking for that type of replacement. But
Gotcha.
jumping from him, when we're talking about the other players in the draft, I see a lot of people
Yeah, right
talking
here.
and shout out to everybody in the chat. But I definitely like Sam Williams. I like Sam. I was talking about Sam Williams in December, big dog. You feel me? I was. And I was saying, hey, watch this guy, because somebody mentioned him, and I just happened to look him up. And I said, hey, man, I know he got 12 and a half sacks. I feel like he was unpolished when I watched him. You know what I mean?
So is Sam Williams more of like a speed rusher, more of like a run defender? Like how would you class? Is he more of an edge? He's more of a defensive end, or more of like two technique? Is more like a stand up linebacker?
He's a down guy. He's a
Okay.
guy that's putting
That's
his,
what I thought.
he's more of like a DeMarcus Lawrence on the right side to me,
Got you.
because he's like 260 pounds. I think he
Okay.
lost maybe a little bit of weight, but he was at 265.
Got you.
He is a guy that could be stout in the run. He's a guy that could set an edge for you like a DeMarcus Lawrence can. Now,
Got you.
he got 12 and a half sacks in a good conference. But when I seen some of those sacks, I'm not taking anything for Sam Williams. Y'all don't crucify me for saying this. But I said he was a 4th rounder. Not saying that I didn't like him, because I have been saying all through Twitter, get this dude, get this dude, get this dude. But let's see if we can get him later. They had to get him because the way the draft fell, and I knew they were going to have to do that. Now, I feel like he's got talent. He's athletic as all out of the world, like a Micah Parsons. And then as big as he is, running 4.4s, that's crazy. You feel me? But let's put him as a spot rusher. Let's not throw him in the fire, and let's start him. Let's make him a spot rusher. And I think that's where he can be deadly. That's where he can use his damage and use his skills, where you don't really see him coming. And next thing you know, Sam Williams out of nowhere before the year's over gets 5-6 sacks out of nowhere, because he's that spot rusher. And I feel like Dan Quinn's going to find that, because that's what Dan Quinn is good at. So I like that pick. And then I love the pick in Jalen Tolbert. If you see a lot of people,
keep talking about him.
A lot of people love that. He definitely could be the starter. I think he could be our starter with Michael Gallup being out. No, he could be our starting number 2. He can be our starting number 2, because he played multiple positions at South Alabama. I actually went to the Senior Bowl. I saw him live. I liked him, before the Senior Bowl. When I watched the Senior Bowl, watched his tape, validated. He's like the size of a Michael Gallup, got some really good speed, good after the catch, can get behind the defense, can hit you over the middle, can play. He can do multiple things. We got to see how good that route tree is, but he's a study of the game, and him and Dak are already working together treacherously. And I feel like once Dak kind of likes you from the beginning, because that's what he did with CeeDee Lamb, he's doing that with Tolbert, and I feel like that's a pick. And then another guy I like is Jake Ferguson. Jake from State Farm Ferguson, I call him, from Wisconsin. I liked him once again at Senior Bowl. That's when I saw these guys. I really liked him in the Senior Bowl. They said he had some of the best hands. I thought he was. I didn't feel like I wanted to see his 40 time. He didn't have the best at the combine, but he dropped it a little bit his pro day. Wow. But he has all those kind of traits that you really like. He's sneaky, not great, but he's sneaky. And what the Cowboys like, I wanted somebody faster. I wanted somebody different. But for what the Cowboys like, I think it'd be good in this system.
Yes, a question about that before. I guess this is a 2-part question, right? So sounds like you're pretty happy with the draft, pretty solid building blocks for the team, building up the different offensive and defensive line. Wide receivers, man. So you guys lost Amari Cooper. You guys have CeeDee Lamb, obviously. Tolbert might be a good prospect. Do you feel like, are you comfortable with that position group? How do you feel about that? And besides that group, are there any other deficits on the roster that you're kind of worried about?
Yeah, those are the two main linebacker and receiver are the two main positions that I'm concerned about as far as depth. Why I've been saying this about linebacker for the last few years. If people have been listening to my show, that's what I've been talking about. And then I said, we don't want to speak about injuries. You never do. You don't ever want to talk about them because you worry about jinxing your team or saying anything crazy, anything like that. But let's be honest. If a CeeDee Lamb goes down, Dallas is in a world of hurt. Of hurt, because they didn't address. Okay, you lost Amari Cooper. Okay, we don't like it, but we know how Stephen Jones does. And then you also lost Cedric.
That's the money thing, the whole Amari Cooper, or what was going on? Like I heard, I saw.
I don't think it was a money thing.
Shout out to Cole. Cole was talking about COVID and about drama. Yeah, he missing some games and all that too.
That's what I feel. I feel like it was the money thing, because they could have afforded Amari Cooper. They could have kept Cooper if they wanted to. It was a situation where If you fall out of favor with the Joneses, especially Stephen Jones, he ain't getting rid of you. And they'll make the excuse of anything else. But, they could have paid you, but he's cheap, don't want to pay you. And if he ain't really liking you because he didn't like how he missed the game because of the COVID regulations. He didn't like that, he was going to Mavericks games and Alabama championship games without a mask and they were finding him. That was to me a sign of rebellion. And then you start seeing the passes coming shorter. He's not getting as many targets. Then Amari starts coming out in the media saying, "Hey, when I get the ball, I'm one of the best in the league. So it's not me. I'm just play the game, but it's not me. I'm one of the best in the league when I get the ball, but I don't control this." So that's when I'll start.
Yeah, start chirping a little bit, start breaking the relationship a little bit.
You kind of feel like it's over.
And the problem with him, he basically he just had like breakout games where he'd have like 10, 11 catches, 180 yards, but then be ghost for a couple games after that. He wasn't a consistent wide receiver. I liked him. I thought he was one of the best route runners in the league. And honestly, I'm sure Washington and the Dallas basically competed for his services a couple years ago. So I was kind of excited to get him. But to each his own. He's going to go to the Cleveland Browns. Unfortunately, the Browns, man, it's a tough place to win. So we'll see if he actually can hit the ground running there. So we'll see what's going on, man. So we'll see. So he said, go ahead. Well, I was just saying about linebackers was also going to go with that part. You're missing linebackers. So how do you feel about that? There's also deficit there.
Yeah, there's definitely depth right there. I mean, obviously we have the monster and Michael Parsons. You had LVE, he came back. You're happy about that because you say, well, you're wondering if LVE could be healthy. That was the biggest thing you were looking at, and he was healthy all 17 games, and you were happy about that. Didn't have a great season, but it was good enough, especially toward the end of the year, especially when you got Neville Gallimore back, be able to take more of the guard and the tackle, hold up two positions, keep LVE free. He can be able to play better. So you like it for the fact of he came back cheap and you needed him back because you didn't go out and get anybody else, right? So that's where that's why you have to like it. You understand? But maybe you didn't like it, but that you don't have a choice. You understand where I'm coming from, George?
Yeah.
So then we got Jabril Cox. We love what the draft pick was. We love what we saw a little bit of.
I have my eye on him too. He's a good coverage linebacker. Like from what I remember going into the draft and watching all the scouting reports and all that, he was a great drop back coverage linebacker, kind of mobile. But I guess his thing was kind of getting downhill and kind of plugging holes in the run game. I don't know if you noticed that as well. And he tore his ACL this year, right? That's what happened, or he was injured?
He tore his ACL in the Giants game. And I still feel like he was green. He needed more work because one of my feelings that I loved about him, and I think the reason why he dropped was because he wasn't a big tackler. He was more of a big safety, big linebacker, type thing. The hybrid type guy. So I think maybe that's why it fell a little bit. So I wanted him to get a little bit more work. So we were all disappointed that he couldn't finish the year. They said that he's going to be ready to go game one, but at the end of the day, he still needs to get experience. Now, we love that. We love it as far as what we feel like he can do, but he's still green. He still hasn't played a lot of games. So you're putting a lot of vesting interest in somebody who hasn't did anything. You get what I'm saying? That's where I feel like you need a veteran. Now, you brought a Luke Gifford back. He's not going to do anything in the game. He's more of a super backup guy, the special teams guy now. We looked at him and thought maybe he could have a chance. Not really. And then you got your linebacker, another linebacker that you drafted. Somebody will say it in the chat right now. We got him in the 5th round, I believe. Damone Clark. I love Damone Clark. I was super excited. I loved him before he got hurt. Now, when I heard about neck injuries, then I ain't love him no more. You feel me? I was like, nah, I don't love him no more. But I was loving him in that Senior Bowl with playing with Channing Tindall. I love it. And when you look at his tape, he's a dog. But I worry about the injury. But they say everything's good, George. They say everything's good about him. Now, I said this. Now, this is down the line. So this ain't happening right now. But if you get a Michael Parsons, a Jabril Cox, and a Damone Clark, and they're all healthy, now you feel nasty about that. But that's not happening right now. So I've been saying since December, I like to say December because that's when I was just saying it, George. You should have looked at Anthony Barr. You should have looked at him. He's still out there. I'm sure there's some other guys.
It's funny, man. Cole Cowboys said the same thing the other day. We were just talking about, I was going to ask, the next question is potential free agents that you want on the team. So we'll go that route in a second. But yeah, the linebackers, man. So honestly, the biggest turnaround for Dallas last year was the fact that their defense completely turned around. Like basically, Dan Quinn was a wizard, man. He basically took that talent, took it another level. Diggs had a breakout year, 11 interceptions. Micah Parsons was a maniac, man. I saw him live, and like, I'm not gonna lie, he's a problem. I'm kind of worried about him right now. Hopefully, he can keep that. I wish the best for him, but not against us. But he looked like a monster out there, so we'll see how that goes. And then finally, I think it's just a running problem in the NFC East. Like, the Eagles have problems with linebackers. Washington has problems with linebackers as well. We drafted Jamin Davis in the 2021 draft, number 15 overall from Kentucky. He was like a height, weight, speed guy. He only started 14 games in the SEC. And we were worried about him, and he hasn't really panned out as our linebacker. Like, I wish Micah Parsons fell to us. I was also a big fan of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I wanted him as our linebacker as well. But right now, it's just kind of for the Dallas fans listening. Like, I think Washington's going to go more of like a 5-2 this year in regard to defense. I think, we drafted Phil Mathis out of Alabama at the defensive line. We're just going to kind of use that, take that strength of ours with Deron Payne and John Allen and Chase Young and Montez Sweat, add another lineman and just kind of try to shut it down. And if anything, have like a Buffalo nickel, like a big safety BR nickelback, because we're in Washington world, our linebackers are our biggest deficit and our defensive backs are our biggest deficit. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
So quick question. So basically I keep seeing this over and over again. I'm going to pose free agents for you. I see a popular name popping up. I'm going to throw this on the screen as well. Are there any free agents that the Cowboys are interested in? Like, maybe just let's do this. I know you might be interested in them. Are there any names attached to the Cowboys? It sounds like Anthony Barr potentially, and then people keep dropping Sue over and over again. Is that true, or that's just fan talk right now?
To me, it's fan talk. Because look, man, I don't do that fan talk no more, big dog. I don't do it because I look how Stephen Jones operates. So even when I look at the draft, I don't look how I want to draft. When I was younger and stuff, I want to draft this player. I want to draft. They should draft this. Why are we looking at and talk about this player? And daggone well, Dallas ain't even looking at him. You feel me? So you just get yourself hyped up for nothing. No, you got to think how they think. So that's what I try to do. I try to really think how they think, and I feel like it makes me a better person to be able to do this, because then I don't get all bent out of shape or excited.
You have to be objective. You have to think of it as a business. Like, it's fun to pick like fantasy team and pick all these players in the team. But at the same time, Sue's old too. Isn't Sue like late 30s or mid 30s right now?
I don't think that would be the issue. It's always going to be about money. You know what I mean?
True. And it's probably gonna be out for a lot of money too.
Here's the situation. Like, Dallas needs to have a good defensive line this year, because when I look at our defensive line, it's unproven. Okay. Yes, we got, and see, here's the thing. Dallas thrived on turnovers last year, and that's what happened even in 2014 when Dallas didn't have a great defense. It was opportunistic. I was saying it all season. Was not dominant by any means, but it was super opportunistic. Had like 26 interceptions. Turnover margin was, I think, number 1 in the league pretty much the whole year. So that's going to keep you in games when you can get sacks and turnovers, and that keeps you in the game. That gets your offense on the field. You score quickly. Then you're putting their offense in the game. Now your defense can pin its ears back, and you can attack. That's 100%. What you want to. That's what kind of defense you want to have.
Possessions wins game, right? So if you can control the time possessions, if you can get the ball back, you have more opportunity. Logistically, you have more opportunities to score. Just smarter to do that. That's why I kind of dig on Diggs every once in a while. He gives up a lot of yards, but at the same time, 11 picks, giving the ball back to your offense 11 more times with the number 1 overall offense that y'all had. That's deadly, man. So it makes it's a big deal right there. Shout out to Steve. One second, my bad. So shout out to Steve. He said our defensive line is fire. Wentz is a complete question mark. I 100% agree with that, man. Like, we're going to talk about the NFC East and threats to win the division and all that in a moment. But yeah, I agree with you. I think our defensive line's pretty solid. One thing just for the Cowboys listeners, I think our offense is actually going to be a little bit better. Like, first of all, we had Taylor Heineke, who was like a career backup, like he shouldn't have been the quarterback last year. So Carson Wentz is a natural upgrade. He does play hero ball. He does throw interceptions. I do hope he does, kind of correct that. He is the big question mark for us. One thing that we're kind of excited about in like Commander land is Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver out of Penn State. He's been dominating in camp, playing pretty well. He's probably going to be our starting slot wide receiver. And basically between Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel coming back, and Jahan Dotson, Carson Wentz actually has some pretty good tools to play with. And Antonio Gibson's a pretty good running back as well. So our offense should take a step back. Being real, being objective, I think our defense is a little bit overrated because we had a pretty bad defense last year. I think our offense is probably a little bit underrated. I think that's kind of the natural balance, but it is July, things can always change. So we'll kind of see how that all goes down. So
Well,
yeah.
I know one thing. I'm definitely interested to see. I said, I've been saying that I believe Carson Wentz is really, even when me and Joe talked yesterday or a couple of days ago on our podcast, he was telling me what was the one thing in the NFC East that kind of the storyline in the NFC East. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, I said Carson Wentz was the storyline in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because he's going to be a big factor.
He is.
Because if he plays I think Carson Wentz is going to do. I think he's talented. I think he can win some games, but I feel like I know what Carson Wentz is also. And
Yeah. That's
so
the conversation. Everyone keeps saying that.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think he's got to prove to people out here. Because you've shown what you was in Philly, it carried at Indianapolis. So now here's probably the last stop of you probably being a starter in the league from here on out. This is your last hurrah. So I think that's why this is so looked at, in my opinion. But as you said, I'm going to keep my eye on Washington. I still feel like y'all going to be third in my opinion, but I'm keeping my eye on y'all because of the quarterback now. I wasn't never fearing your guys. You had Tyler Heineke, or if you had whoever you had back there, there was never no fear. And I feel like when you go in there, when you know that you can win without that beat that team, and that team doesn't have a quarterback, you feel a little bit more confident when you're going into that game because you know you can beat that team because that quarterback play is shoddy. Now with Carson Wentz back there, it's going to be a different story. You don't go in there, and like you said, Dodson. I mean, I think you got a good tight end, and Logan Thomas used to be a former quarterback, and I watched him as he transitioned to the tight end position.
Yep.
And McLaurin, you got Curtis Samuel. We'll see if he can come off that injury bug and get consistent. So you have some guys and Gibson, so it could be scary. So it definitely don't want to go in there thinking, hey, this is the same old Commanders, and just go in there and try to do that because an upset can happen. So you definitely have some tools, but we'll see about that Carson Wentz thing because he's the key.
100%, man. Everything you spit was knowledge too, man. That was all facts. 100%. I appreciate that. I respect that. I mean, everything was true. So, the biggest thing, right? So, I'm seeing the chat below up. I'm seeing the Carson Wentz talk. We can pivot to the NFC East. I agree with you, man. I think Carson Wentz is the biggest question mark. I think coming from me being objective, being knee deep in this Commander stuff. The talk coming out of DC is that Carson Wentz offers the most upside that we've had in a very, very long time, probably since Kirk Cousins, right? If you think about our carousel of quarterbacks that we have Case Keenum, we had Taylor Heineke, we had Dwayne Haskins, we had one-legged Alex Smith, we had Garrett Gilbert start a game. We've had a lot of quarterbacks coming through, and I'm sure you guys recently saw that Terry McLaurin is re-up for a 3-year, $71 million contract. Guys, over 3 years, Terry McLaurin has had 8 different quarterbacks throw the ball to him. And basically every single season opener for over the past 3 years, he's had a different starting quarterback. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick was supposed to be our starter last year, out within a half, and then Taylor Heineke wasn't supposed to start. So I do think Carson Wentz does provide upside. There are a lot of question marks. And that's kind of where Washington's kind of the wild card, right? So Joseph, I agree with you, man. Curtis Samuel, I love the guy. When we got him as a free agent, I was really excited about him. But at the same time, he's more of a gadget wide receiver. He's more of like somebody you put in the backfield, kind of do jet sweeps with him, kind of roll out on wheel routes and things like that. I think Washington kind of envisions him as like a Z wide receiver, Terry McLaurin's our X. Samuel's going to be the guy coming in motion kind of thing. But as you mentioned, he only played 5 games last year. He had a groin injury. He was in and out all of last year, so we can't really depend on him. I saw some other chats about Wentz over here. I agree. He definitely he doesn't fix everything. Carson Wentz is the question mark, but I think what people like about him in DC is that physically he can make every single throw. Like Taylor Heineke was a kind of he's a slight build. He was I believe 5'11", 200, something like that. Carson Wentz is 6'5", 250. He's he was mobile. We'll see if he actually those injuries have added up over the years. But Carson Wentz was the number 2 overall pick for a reason. He was that prototype, big, mobile quarterback. And what I think and what I've heard and what I've kind of talked to with insiders is that Washington was hesitant to throw like deep pitches and like, wheel routes on those sidelines and things like that because Taylor Heineke didn't have the arm strength to get it there. Carson Wentz does. So I think Wentz opens up the playbook a little bit for Washington, which makes Washington more intriguing. But at the same time, Wentz has, as you mentioned, we've seen what he can do. And he has the propensity to throw some bad interceptions, make some dumb plays, hero ball type things, hold on to the ball and cause sacks and, sacks and fumbles. So we are kind of worried about that. So Leon talked about basically, he's hanging his head. Guys won't believe in him. So we'll see what's up. So, yeah. So
we'll
I don't know.
see.
We'll see how,
Like
we'll see what's up.
it's gonna
Go
be,
ahead.
like I said, very interesting, how I see it, and then, like you said, even with the Commanders, like on the defense you were talking about, and I was saying that secondary was real shoddy, and I want to see how it does. But I did a video on Jamin Davis from Kentucky, and it's funny
I
how you
love
talk
Davis.
about him.
Yeah.
Because when he was coming out of college, they were all hyping him, and I'm gonna keep it real. They were pushing him almost to a first rounder.
I agree.
And
I thought it was a second. I thought it was just when I was at FedEx Field.
I said fourth.
Fourth. Wow. Okay.
Not because of the talent, because he was green, bro.
He was green. I think he started 14 or played in 14 games.
They threw him into the fire. He wasn't ready for all that. They should have had a veteran ahead of him and kind of let him kind of slow cook it, and so the game could kind of slow down for him, because he has the ability is all there. You can see the ability, but too many times the awareness, the instincts were kind of slow, and you feel me?
No, that's exactly right. So, James, you're on point, man. You know what you're talking about. So coming out, he had like a RAS score, a relative athletic score for those of you that are listening. Basically, like, you look at your linebackers relative to your peers. I think he had like a 9.99 RAS score or something. He was like the biggest, fastest, biggest overall package coming out. So he had the height, weight, speed appeal, but at the same time, cognitively smart processing. That was his question and experience. And playing at Kentucky, is he really going to jump into the pro level and take it to that next step? I think Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, being former linebackers, kind of had that arrogance in that. Like, we can coach him up, he'll be all right. Like, we like that piece of clay that he is, but he just never got to that level. And last year, they put him at middle linebacker, just kind of wanted him to call plays, kind of take the lead, be that Luke Kuechly type that they had in Carolina, and he just wasn't ready for that. He isn't that guy, at least right now. And what they did was they put him at weak side linebacker for this year's to be a weak side linebacker, going to let him run, let Cole Holcomb play middle linebacker and see what happens. But I'm always straight, man. I don't rah-rah. Like, coming out of OTAs, he basically, like, we're hearing that he isn't doing well in OTAs even now. So we'll see how it all shakes out and plays out later. So, and then just kind of
the athletic ability.
Yeah, he does have athletic ability for sure. So, we'll kind of stop. A couple more comments on Wentz, and we'll pivot to NFC East for real. Cole, I agree, man. I think Wentz has lower expectations here. It sounds bad to say it that way. When he was in Indianapolis, he followed Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, was it Phillip Rivers as the previous quarterbacks before him. So he had a pedigree of like expectations in Indianapolis. But I think coming here, if he had 27-7 last year, people were like, oh, he had an awful year in Indianapolis. That would be like gold here in DC. Basically, we've had such crap quarterbacks over the past couple of years. Taylor Heineke had 20 touchdowns and 13 picks. So going to 27-7, is getting those more points. I think we'd be excited with him. As James mentioned before, it's the final test for him. He needs, his knock is that he can be stubborn. He can be like, his Wonderlic score was like a 42, 43. He's a very intelligent guy, and with intelligence come arrogance. And basically, he was kind of arrogant and wouldn't take feedback from coaching. But I think he's going to humble himself, because if he doesn't thrive this year, he's going to probably be relegated to a career backup as opposed to a starter. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But let's pivot a little bit. So, expectations for you, man, about the Cowboys. Are you they won 11? They won 12 games this year, 12-5 last year, correct? So do you think Dallas flirts with that again this year? Do you think they take a step back? Like, what do you think? How do you feel about Dallas? Like, let's talk about this. How do you feel about Dallas? How do you feel about the NFC East and their biggest threat?
Well, I feel like, like I said, me and Joe Castro, Philly, we did actually the NFC breakdown, who we thought were going to be the actual winners, places and things of that nature. I felt like the Cowboys would be the same record, 12-5. I do feel like we still did take a step back in some things, but we're still talented enough in this East to really win it again. And like I said, 12-5, but I definitely said the first part of the schedule was the most difficult. I had us 4-4 at the bye.
Mhm.
And so we were struggling. We were like 2-4 at one point. I had us at 2-4 at one
Oh,
point
wow.
before we played the Lions and Bears and then go to the bye. And then after that, we played Green Bay, had the big upset, and then go on a run. And that's where we kind of close it out with those victories, like on a 6 or 7 game win streak.
Yeah, you
Um,
guys caught on
so
fire.
so So I definitely had us struggling in the very beginning, and I definitely had a lot of people were going to say the same things that they've been saying about Dallas, is
Mhm.
that we beat teams that we're supposed to beat, but when it comes to those tough games, that we're kind of looking at okay, this is the game that we're looking at Dallas getting over this hump. Like we're always saying, we choke when we play in these big games. We beat smash these teams that we know we're supposed to smash, but when we
Mhm.
playing these Arizona Cardinals when it's a big game, or when we playing the Kansas City Chiefs and it's a big game, you want to measure yourself, and you lose those games, well then people just going to keep on saying the same things about you. And so that's really the issue with Dallas. We beat teams that we're supposed to, but even in this schedule, I have us losing the teams that people are going to measure us against, and I have us losing those games. And hey, I'm sorry, Cowboys fans, but until the Cowboys show me that they can win those games and win those games consistently, I'm going to have to think they're going to lose those games.
Interesting. So before we start talking about competition, Joe Castro back in the chat. I'm sure you talked about it with in your own podcast. What's your record prediction for the Cowboys this year? What are you thinking? The win loss total.
Oh, we definitely. I had it 12-5. I had the Philadelphia Eagles 11-6. I had you guys at, I think y'all were 8-9. Y'all could have
Okay.
got 9. Y'all could have got 9-8. I think we were going back and forth on this one game that you guys had. I can't remember it. And I had the Giants at 5-12. So yeah. So that's we had it 1-2-3, and I really felt like really Carson Wentz is your guys' deciding factor. But I just feel like, just in my opinion, I just don't
Yeah.
feel like you Commanders are ready yet.
Okay.
I just don't feel like Ron Rivera is the guy to really get you there. And I
Hmm.
think me and you, we had when
We talked about before. Yeah.
we had that group talk. I feel like I totally agree with you that he's a guy that he's a grunt guy. He can take them bullets. He this controversy that's going on. This is the kind of coach you need to be able to deal with all this cloud that's going over Washington right now. I feel like this type of coach. But I don't know. He's a long-term coach guy that's year in, year out. It's going to be competing and taking you to those type of epic levels. I don't feel like he's that guy. And I feel like because of that too, I feel like that's why you guys are going to stay at this certain level. I know he went to Carolina, he went to the Super Bowl and all that. But I feel like he's a defensive coordinator, and that's just what he is. And that's just what he is.
Yeah, to summarize what James was talking about, so I was on his podcast about a week or two ago. Basically, I said Ron Rivera. This is my belief. Some people feel differently in Washington, but I feel like Ron Rivera is a good transitional coach for Washington. Like we're going through all this stuff with the name change and the sexual harassment scandals and all these issues going on, and injuries and things like that. And I think he is a guy that kind of brings professionalism and brings culture to DC and kind of brings a high floor to Washington. But I don't kind of put him in that same spheres like Sean McVay and Andy Reid. He's not an innovative offensive mind. You kind of need that in today's NFL. So I think Ron Rivera will kind of get Washington back on their feet. We're going to be kind of 500 for a little while, but I think eventually he might pivot to more of like a front office role, and eventually he might get like a more young, up and coming coach to kind of take us to that next level. So that's kind of where I see what's going on.
Yeah.
Real quick. So people are battling over this on Twitter, and I see it in my social media a lot too. Jalen Hurts, man, are you a believer? How do you feel about him?
We'll see. I
Okay.
mean, this is just my opinion. He's like in the Dak Prescott situation to me. It reminds me of Dak
Okay.
Prescott. If I'm gonna just
Yeah.
keep it real. When Dak came out, he was unpolished, and this is not disrespecting no Dak or anything like that, so people don't get in their feelings. When Dak came out, he was unpolished. Okay,
Is
and then he
Dak
was.
controversial in Dallas, or people just universally love him?
No, they
So I
don't
think he's a good
universally.
quarterback.
No, they don't. You don't universally love Dak in Dallas.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's
Okay.
not universal. I'm gonna say it's split half and half. If I'm gonna keep it real,
Interesting.
just my opinion. I
Okay.
think it's split because so many people hate on him. I don't understand why.
Like
I
37 touchdowns last year, bro. Like fourth in the league or something like that. As a Commanders fan, I'm jealous of Dak Prescott. He's a good player for real, in my opinion. But go ahead. So what's the knock on him? Why do people not like him in Dallas?
It's funny. I said he's got to get better, But
Mhm.
from where he's came from and what he's been to, I feel like he's always going to continue to work to get better. Now, I feel like he has a ceiling as far as is he just going to get tremendously better every year? I don't feel that way, but I feel like he's good enough to take you to a championship because he has everything else too. Like
Mhm.
he's not just one thing.
Oh, so
Like
people
he's
are
a
saying he's
great
dependent on people. Is that what's going on?
I feel like he does need players.
Okay.
I don't feel
Okay.
like, in my opinion, that if you just say Dak, nobody else, you got this every single game. I don't feel like that. No, I don't. I don't feel that
Interesting.
way.
Okay.
People, that's just my opinion. I feel like he needs those weapons. I feel like you need to get weapons around him for him but I feel like that's what some quarterbacks. I mean, when you look at a lot of these quarterbacks out there, though, bro, there's very few of them that can just win these games without some talent
100%.
around them.
There's
Very few.
very few. And honestly, I agree with you, bro. Actually, if you guys ever listen to the Athletic podcast, there actually was a great quote that I picked up the past couple of days. There's a small group of quarterbacks that can elevate the rest of their team. And then if you don't have those quarterbacks, you need basically a well-rounded wide receiver group to raise up the quarterback. And basically, we're hoping in DC that our collection of wide receivers can raise up Carson Wentz. Prescott, it's going to be interesting. Losing Amari Cooper, can CeeDee Lamb take a heavy load, man? 100 targets,
Yeah, I
90
mean, I
catches.
don't.
He do
Yeah,
all
he
that?
can- he can definitely do the target. I mean, I think he had over 100 targets last year, so
Okay.
I don't think that's the issue of CeeDee Lamb
Okay.
being able to step up. I mean, before Dak got hurt in 2020, I mean, I think he was the leading receiver. He was setting records in his first like 4 or 5 games with CeeDee Lamb as a rookie. He was
Yeah,
getting like 20, had like 20 catches like in the first part of the season. So
I do. I
I
remember
don't
that
feel
actually.
they already have that connection. So I feel like that's going to just do its thing. You see what I
Yeah.
mean? I think a lot of people are going to be looking at, okay, it's a lot, Amari Cooper's not here. We saw how when Dak was kind of struggling, Amari Cooper, I said, in my opinion, when Amari Cooper got there to Dallas, he did make Dak better. It helped Dak become a better quarterback because now you had a doggish receiver. You didn't have that. You had a bunch of just these guys that weren't those guys. And it was
Hmm.
tough on Dak because he was still growing as a quarterback. And they were trying to do this receiver by committee. And Dak was not ready for that because they were looking at what he did his rookie year. He was still coming into his own. So you still had to get him weapons. You feel me? So I
Hmm.
think that was the perfect thing that they did for Dak was getting Amari Cooper because it took right off. I feel like it helped that game and it helped Amari's game. So I feel like it made Dak a better quarterback. So now I feel like it's going to be a good thing with him and CD. But in my opinion, Dak still has to take it to another level in this year. He has to, because if Dallas wants to do what they want to do, take it to the next level in the playoffs, not the regular season, because we've seen it in the regular season. We've seen it in regular season time and time again. Need to take it to that next level in the playoffs. You got to make those tough throws. You got to make those throws. You can't hold that ball. This is just my critique, mine,
No,
nobody
that's
else's.
that's that's
You
perfect
feel
though.
me?
That's a great
You know what
that's
I'm
a
saying?
great segue. It's a great segue because my next question, bro, is going to ask you what would constitute a good season for the Dallas Cowboys. Like, what would be a good season for Dallas?
I mean, a good season is we finally doing something in these playoffs. I don't care
Okay,
about the regular
playoff
season
win.
no more.
Okay,
We've already Dallas has proved that they're a talented team, win almost 8, 9, 10 games a year. Okay,
yeah.
they've already proven that almost year and a look at the schedule. Unless it's just turnover where they're getting rid of the coach. Okay, but talent wise, Dallas is getting at least 8 wins a year. Okay, so it's
Yeah.
not about the talent; it's about the mental capacity, it's about the coaching, it's about doing all those type of things to get you to succeed to the next level in the playoffs. That's where it has to be. Now I feel like the problem is one thing, you got to get those difference makers in free agency, one or two. You don't have to get 5 or 6, one
Yeah.
or two that can get you over the hump, get you that doggish attitude to take you there. We don't have that. So I feel like if you're not getting that, then you're putting all your guys as those top guys. Then those top guys, the Dak Prescotts, the DeMarcus Lawrences, the CeeDee Lambs, you're putting those guys in that level because you're saying we're not going down to free agency. We're just going to pay you guys. So if they're saying that, they're saying you're like those guys. So you have to perform like those guys. So if you don't, then it's always going to be shortcomings.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I thought last year Your window is still open, but I feel like that your best shot was last season with all the
Yeah, it
talent you
was,
guys
and
had
that's
on the
why I feel
roster.
like a lot
Yeah,
of us are still I'm still frustrated. If we want to keep it all the way real, they
yeah,
say get over it, Jay, get over it. I want to get over it, George. I want to get
yeah.
over it.
I'm
But
sure you
when
do.
I
Yeah,
saw that team, this is the
yeah.
first time, George, and I don't be jumping out there on that Super Bowl stuff because I said Dallas wasn't going no Super Bowls no more with Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones at the helm. But I
Interesting.
changed
Okay,
it a little bit last year, George,
okay,
because
okay.
I said, "Ooh, okay, offense, defense. First time you had defense, special teams play. First time, okay." This could be. This could be. I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid too much, George. Toward the end, said this could be. I didn't like how we played against Arizona, and then I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, George. And I had a few of my people say this when we looked at that San Francisco game, dog. We all said to ourselves, this is going to be our hardest game. If they
That was
can
a bad
beat the
matchup for
Niners,
y'all. Yeah, that
yeah,
was a bad
if
matchup
they
for
can
y'all.
beat these Niners, we're gonna be smooth sailing. I think we're going to Super Bowl. If we can beat these Niners. That's gonna be our toughest game. And guess what happened? We flopped. What I felt in my heart and soul, I didn't want to say it out loud. I
I'm
looked
through
at
it.
my
Said it against
team.
Cole. Go ahead.
Okay, yep.
Go
See,
ahead.
same old Cowboys, and that's how I feel.
I feel you, man. So I'm gonna throw you a question real quick. It's coming up in the chat a couple times. You're tough. You can take it. So D Block's
Yeah,
throwing some hate at you right now. D Block
that's
said,
fine.
"Yo, big game. What QB don't need weapons?"
I said that. I said that in the chat. If you listen to a big dog, I said all these. I said very few. There are very few, maybe a couple quarterbacks that don't need those weapons and can just make things. All these other quarterbacks need weapons. I definitely said that. But in my opinion, Dak still needs to take it to another level. That is me. Because if the Cowboys do, yes, he's good, but he's got to be great if we're wanting him to go to what we're talking about because we're not getting those free agents. He's got to be great. The whole team has to be great because y'all know how this front office acts and y'all know what happens. They're relying on young players, rookies, second-year players. So Dak and them have to be like the Aaron Rodgers. They have to be like the Pat Mahomes. They have to be the TJ Watts, the Marcus Lawrence. They have to be. So if we not going nowhere, that's the truth.
So quick question to you, man. So you said something that's kind of interesting to me. You don't think Dallas can win with Jerry Jones as the owner, general manager? Why do you say that? I feel like
Because
he. Go ahead. I was gonna say I feel like he has
because
a lot of money. Is what I was gonna say. He can just do whatever he wants. But go ahead. But I guess he's
But he
not
doesn't
spending
do
it.
that anymore. But he's
Okay.
not doing
Okay.
that anymore. See, you got to look at how the dynamic of Jerry Jones happened. When he first came in this thing, he was wild, and I loved it. You know what I'm saying? Didn't give a hell. Just went hard. Just I'm throwing money. We trying to win Super Bowls. We going crazy. I love that. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I love that attitude. And even when he made some mistakes about maybe getting the Joey Galloways of the world and getting the Roy Williams, he probably made some mistakes. But I never faulted him for trying. At least
Yeah.
every year he was like, okay, we're missing this. I'm gonna go out and try to get it. I
Yeah.
like that. But now that has changed. And the older he has gotten, he's almost 80 years old. First of all, I don't like having an 80-year-old general manager, bro. I don't like
Yeah.
that because that's outdated. I don't like how it's just the Joneses and they control everything else. I don't like that. And Stephen Jones, I'm gonna keep it real. I thought he was going to be different coming up. I did. I did. And I even when I came out of media school, George, thinking, okay, I think Stephen Jones because he keeps the cap right and he's keeping it. But then I'm like, hold up, dog. No, 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 no. I don't like that at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that is going to keep because he's super conservative. Conservative don't win. He doesn't like to spend money. You have to spend money in this game. You have to.
You
And
do.
I feel
You
like
gotta take a shot, especially if your team's
you
on the brink. You have to take a shot. I agree with you there.
when you got the talent, you got to go for it. You can't sit there and say, well, we didn't win it this year. Let's try. And the problem is with that, George, because there's nobody pushing the Cowboys. See, in DC or whatever, there's general managers, and you got about a 3-year window. If you don't get it done, you're getting fired. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't have that problem in Dallas,
Yeah,
and
it's
there's no
all like
pressure.
nepotism. It's all family based. Yeah, exactly right.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
So where is the pressure to say, no, this is unacceptable. This needs to happen. They don't have that pressure. So there is no rush. And guess what? They ain't losing no money. Jerry Jones is worth $8 billion.
Yeah, I think it's printing money too. So it's kind of $8 billion. That's wild, man. So it's crazy though. Between the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Commanders, none of us spent any money this offseason. I don't understand what they're saving it for. I don't know. You got to take your shots every once in a while. So I agree with that. All right, one or two more questions. We can wrap it up for the day. So you talked about Dak Prescott taking that next level, kind of, stepping up and maybe, being that Aaron Rodgers type. That's what we need in Dallas. What's your expectations for Zeke this year and Tony Pollard? What's that whole dynamic going to look like for you?
I definitely feel like Zeke still needs to be the starter. I still feel like Zeke, he's not like 30 or 32 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
How
I
old
don't
is
feel like
Zeke now? He's like
he's
what,
only
20
26
something?
years old, but
26. Oh wow, it's so young.
he's
Yeah, very young.
he's probably an older 26 by running back years because I mean
All the
he's got
carries.
the most
Yeah.
carries I believe in it since he's came in the NFL. So
Okay.
you saw last year because one of the things that you loved about Zeke, no matter what you said about him, never missed no games. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
This is the
Yeah.
first time he had the injury, so you got to keep your eye on that because that's when it starts to happen with the running backs. They go hard, and then it's just
They
one
do.
injury, then it becomes the injury, and then becomes nagging. So I think that's what I'm gonna keep my eye on, George. Is this gonna be a continuous thing, the injury thing? He looks good, but it could be one little injury, then he's out 2 or 3 weeks. That's how it happens. So I'm gonna be keeping my eye on that. But my expectation is I think Zeke can still get 11, possibly 1,200 yards because he's still a good back. He was doing very well before he got hurt. He tore his
Yeah, 10
tear.
touchdowns last year, right?
Yeah,
10 touchdowns. Okay.
right. And I
Yeah.
mean, he still got 1,000 on a tore up knee in week 4. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the Cowboys' fault that they didn't switch that and let Pollard run the ball more and sit
Mm-hmm.
Zeke back. And I think that's the frustration in Cowboys world. But my expectation, I said Tony Pollard should turn up this year, and people like, nah, he ain't gonna do it because it's his contract year, and Stephen Jones don't want to pay him. It don't matter if he don't want to pay him because even if he does turn up, Stephen Jones probably ain't gonna pay him anyway. He probably ain't gonna play here no more anyway. So why not give him the ball and let him do his thing? So that's what I'm really hoping.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I'm really hoping, George, that
Yeah.
Kellen Moore really incorporates these two together, really makes that work, and that makes that dynamic work. Because Tony Pollard cannot be on the bench this year. That
Do
was
you like
one of
Kellen
our.
Moore?
I don't hate on Kellen Moore.
Okay.
Okay. But I feel like, he still needs to get better. He's only
Got
30.
you.
This is what I would give Kellen Moore because everybody, my guy Steve Lumpton, he'll know. Yeah, you love some Kellen Moore. Yeah, you love. I didn't speak bad on him. I was trying to give him his flowers. But guess what? If you get seen and you get exposed, I gotta say you got exposed, bro, and you gotta get better. Just like if somebody came at me, you got exposed, bro. You gotta get better. Okay, I did. I gotta get better. You know what I'm saying? It's just real. But he's only 33 years old, George. He took over at the OC at 30. And 2 of his 3 years, he's had the number 1 offense in total yards. 2 of the 3 years.
He's an up-and-coming offensive coordinator, probably head coach, to be honest with you. Like, it's going to be interesting because I know, like, I don't know if you agree with me, but it seems like in Dallas, Mike McCarthy's in the hot seat. Sean Payton's the hot name going to Dallas, but I wouldn't be surprised if Kellen Moore, what do you think he could possibly succeed Mike McCarthy? Or, like, you think Jerry wouldn't go that route?
Well, see, here's the thing. When I said as soon as they brought Kellen Moore in the building, I said, okay, they're going to do him like Jason Garrett because he came in the same way like Garrett, quarterback's coach, and they're going to raise him up just like they did Garrett. And this is our new prodigy, only 30 years old. We're going to mold him and make him. Yeah, I definitely thought he was going to be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys when Jason Garrett was there, like they're going to slide in. Okay, so then when they brought Mike McCarthy in, you see, this is the dynamic that messes it up, George. When Mike McCarthy came in, Kellen Moore had to stay. He gave anybody else he wanted, but Kellen Moore had to stay. You know why?
And
because I feel like that messes up the dynamic.
It
because
does. There's
now
no chemistry. You can't pick your own guy and all that kind of
you
stuff.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's an underlying thing that's going on. And then Dan Quinn comes in and kills it.
Yeah.
So, and he was a head coach in the NFL already.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't know. It's a whole bunch of pot stewing right here between all 3 of these guys. And then you got Sean Payton sitting out there and Jerry Jones is saying, oh, it ain't right to talk about Sean Payton. You was talking about him before, though, bro. It was you was talking about how much you love Sean Payton and you best friends. Now you like, no, they ain't right to talk about Sean Payton. Okay, then. You get what I'm saying? So Sean Payton is out there, dog. Let's keep it real. If Mike McCarthy does not do it this year and Sean Payton is out there and Jerry Jones can get him, he's taking a Sean Payton over a Kellen Moore. Because he's 80 years old. He needs to win a Super Bowl now.
I think he has an affection for Sean Payton and all that kind of stuff, too. It makes a lot of sense.
He's already been in the building, and he's always had that thing from afar for him. So 100%. It's only going to make sense to say, this is our last hurrah. Like, we're not going to start over.
He likes that sexy splash, too. He likes that media. He likes that whole big thing. So I can see that happen. It makes sense. Yeah, I agree.
Well, and plus that like I said, why he got Mike McCarthy. There was young college coaches out there that talking about the Lincoln Raleigh, but he said it. I'm too old for this. I need somebody who got skins on the wall, and that's why I got McCarthy. And he's going to do the same thing if McCarthy fails. If Sean Payton's out there, he's going after Payton.
100%. I agree. That makes sense, man. So going back to let's do 1 or 2 more players that will be done for our podcast. I agree, man. I think Zeke, I was reading up on the Cowboys, doing some research before the podcast. Todd Archer basically said Zeke is, unquestioned starting running back is what he's saying over there. Zeke got $50 million guaranteed. I think it's by far the most the running back got paid. Like, I think like the next number 2 on the guaranteed money was about 20 or 30 million. You can't, like, I don't think anyone can be paying running backs that much more money these days. I think running backs, they're kind of, dime a dozen. You can get some players that get, Zeke was a good player. He can dominate, but at the same time, that's a large contract, and that money's going to kind of hurt you guys in the long term. So we'll see how that goes. But Tony Pollard got some upside. We'll see. We'll see what happens. When's Zeke's contract up? Is it up next year or 2 years from now?
They can get rid of him if they want to, and I believe because if they were to cut him, because everybody say, "Oh, this is he could have cut him before June," that would have been like an $11 million hit. So after this season, I believe they could cut him, and then the dead money is very minimal.
No dead money. It's all
right,
gone.
right. It's not going to hurt the team, but in my opinion, this could very well happen. If Zeke if he has a decent year and he looks healthy, doesn't get hurt, I think that the Cowboys, because so many people love Zeke in Dallas, they love Zeke, and Zeke is still a money maker for Dallas. See, Dallas looks at it from the money aspect of how much money still you bringing into them. If you're not that value to them, they're going to get rid of you. So if Zeke still has value in bringing in jersey sales and that, they're going to keep him. And the way they changed up that deal for DeMarcus Lawrence, where they guaranteed like a 3-year deal for him, but he basically gave them this kind of money, gave up money so they could look for different players. I think they could do the same thing with Zeke, give him like a 3-year deal and keep him if they feel like he still brings us in money. So I say keep an eye on that. I said that could be his last year, but keep an eye on that part.
I feel like Jerry Jones, like he falls in. Dan said our same thing over in DC, but I feel like Jerry Jones falls and loves with players and wants them to be like legacy Cowboys. And I think Dak Prescott's going to be that guy. I do think Zeke is that guy too. He's an iconic Cowboy. I don't see letting Jerry have him walk out of the building. I can see that there too. All right, last question of the day. We can wrap it all up. Who's more important to the offense, CeeDee Lamb or Ezekiel Elliott?
Ooh. I'm gonna say Zeke. I'm gonna say, okay. And people gonna say CeeDee. No, you got to have a running game, dog. You need that running game, and if Zeke is running that, toting that ball, the offense is better. The offense is better when Zeke is running that ball, not when Dak Prescott is throwing 50 times a game to CeeDee Lamb or he's chucking the ball everywhere, throwing the ball. No, I always said that Dak is better when his game is balanced. When we can have balanced running and we can have balanced passing, the team is devastating. So, no, I'm going to go with Zeke because when Zeke is toting that ball and really running, it opens the whole game up for this offense, period.
I agree, man. Running game definitely you can definitely
shout out to Steve. Shout out to you, dog.
Shout out, Steve. I appreciate that, man. Definitely. Me and James talked pre-show. Like I worked with him before, and I worked with Joe before. Like you recognize real people, man. Like we are both objective football guys who love talking football. So thank you for listening today, by the way. I appreciate that. So on that note, let's kind of bring it to an end. We got about an hour and 6 minutes on this show. James, tell the crowd where they can find you, upcoming products you're working on, what's going on.
Hey, just check me out, Dallas Cowboys, Big Game James. You can check me out on 3 platforms, my YouTube, my Facebook, and my Twitter. Big Game, just hit up Big Game James. You'll be able to see it. I'm doing my Cowboys thing. We're getting ready for the 2022 season. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it happens. But I'm really going hard with the youth right now, with these young kids out here doing fire interviews, man. Make sure you please go support that. If you want to support anything Big Game James, please go support me with these kids. We want to get exposure for these guys. We want to get these kids scholarships. We want to, there's a lot of things that you didn't know about these young men. And I got a young lady coming on, great basketball player with her mother, going to do a lot of good things. So if you want to support anything, man, let's go out there and support these kids, because I'm tired of hearing about the negativity about the youth out there. It's time that we hear good, positive things, and that's what I'm trying to bring. So go out there and support that if you support anything from Big Game James, please.
Much respect to that, bro. We definitely respect that. So, I work in the education field. I know about the youth of America, man. I appreciate that. They're all good people. And they need some good mentors. And James, you definitely giving them a good platform to be seen. I love that, man. So good stuff there. And guys, I'm George Carmi. You can find me at Twitter at GCarmi21. I'm kind of new to the podcast game. This is my 13th episode. So definitely help me build up my YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate that. You can find me at Full Press Commanders. I'm also I started off as a writer, so that's kind of my thing too. So I write for Full Press Coverage. I've also wrote for Sports Illustrated back in the day. So I really appreciate everything. So guys, thank you for jumping on. That chat was fire today. Really appreciate all y'all.
Appreciate you, big dog. Appreciate you.
All right, bro. Take care, man. See y'all later. Peace.
Peace.